I've been in this industry for close to 45 years. Lived in the Merritt Valley for 20. And I've never seen times like this where the logging industry is on its knees. 5 months for most people in the valley here, that it's been 5 months since we worked.
We have been working in this industry for 67 years now, and out of those 50 years continuously with the same mill. But now we are almost looking at the end of that period. It's pretty shaky. We're going into the 5th month already that we haven't cut any trees. We did ship some lumber that we had decked in there in March. Like George says, March was the last time. We have done a couple of small jobs here and there. In the last week, we started cleaning ditches and so on in some of the forestry roads for the ministry, and it keeps 1 or 2 machines going for a couple of weeks, but that's about all. And I know you're asking the same question, how is it affecting us? It's affecting us big time. I mean, our employees count on that paycheck, like they say, to pay mortgages and so on. Some of them are on unemployment, some of them, they're just hanging on at home the best they can. We try to help them, but what can we do? What can we do right now? We have no future because we don't know what's going to happen. So this is what's happening.
I'm coming from a very respectful point of view that I'm not placing blame over to anybody. I'm just here and I'm looking for a solution and want to be part of the solution. It's heartbreaking for me to have people telling me that being unemployed and never being so broke in their life, that's really difficult for me to embrace. And I'm trying to do everything I can to prevent them from bankruptcy or having to leave this town or find another industry to be part of, because the forest industry is so important to me. I grew up on timber dollars. My dad was a logger. And so loggers are in this industry because they're passionate about this industry. So I think that those of us that are left in this industry are here for the purpose of passion and wanting to be here. So I think if there's people in this industry that want to work, that's what we're looking for. All we're asking for is some work. We don't want handouts. We don't want unemployment checks. We want jobs, good paying jobs, pay for our mortgages, cars, and our kids' activities, and giving our families a livelihood to be proud of. The thing that concerns me the most is my employees and the families that are suffering, and just the town overall. It really breaks my heart to see people suffering emotionally, spiritually. It's just heartbreaking to see people counting not even the dollars but their cents and trying to pinch pennies to feed their families and support their kids. And it really is super heartbreaking when my crew is calling and asking and almost begging for work because they're down to their last dollars and they're wondering, like, I can't feed myself, I can't feed my kids. Like, this is heartbreaking for me. I'm very respectful of the government on various levels, whether that's ministry or First Nations, in the discussions that they are making. I believe it's important. I believe in stewardship, and as a logger, that's a really important part of what we do as well. And like I said, I'm very respectful of the discussion that is going on, but at the same time, it's really hurting our community and our members not having work. And everybody's willing to work and do so in a way that is respectful to the land and title and rights and all of that type of thing.
Okay, so it hasn't affected me too terribly bad because I'm about ready to retire, but there's a lot of other workers that work with me that's affected quite bad. People with young families and stuff that not working, that have mortgages and kids, and that's really affected them lots. Emotionally affected them when they're trying to support their families, and they're counting on the job in order to go to work at each day, and then they're sitting at home and there's no other work in the community since it's a small community. There's no work here for anybody. So they're trying to make choices whether they got to leave town or just try to wait it out and see what happens. Well, I've heard a lot of different things, and it seems like the rumors have it that it could be the permits, it could be the government not issuing permits, it could be something to do with the First Nations not having their approval, and we really at this point haven't been told exactly what's going on. It could possibly be the mill that just doesn't want to issue any or start logging to any of the permits that they do have. We just don't have an exact answer as what's going on. Well, the only assistance we have is EI. I looked at this, government offered this bridge to retirement because of any person over 55. They said that they'd possibly give $75,000 for people to retire early. So I looked into that, and I think it was just a government talking point, because when you're 55, it says up to $75,000 you're eligible, but for every year you're over 55, they deduct $5,000. So by the time, and most people, like my age, were above in the 60s. So by the time I look at retirement, I get about maybe $8,000, and I'm thinking, well, that's not very good to retire on, or to give up my job for, and I'm not allowed to go back into the forest industry for 2 years if I accept that. So like I said, if I was able to be in as age as I am, I'd probably get a minimum amount of money if they offered the whole $75,000. And then of course I have to pay tax on that. So really to give up my job, which is, we make quite good money when we do work, for, $10,000, $12,000 is really doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, it's not just the forest workers themselves, like it's the people that are working in our local Lordco and Bumper to Bumper, and our grocery stores, restaurants, fuel stops. I talked to some businesses that deal directly with our loggers. They're down 50% in their sales. That's all an impact for the whole valley. Like, there's not too many jobs in this valley that aren't directly impacted by forestry or the lack of. So we need to get this government a little more focused on what small town BC needs, and get our people back to work, get these permits approved, and let's get to work.
So the trickle-down effect isn't just those directly involved in forestry, but it is everybody in the community, right from the grocery store owners, their employees, the doctor's offices, our schools. Everybody is impacted. The forest industry is the heart and soul of Merritt. Yes, we do have ranching and mining, but logging and forestry is the heart and soul of the Nicola Valley. It is heartbreaking to everybody because it's our homes that are being placed at risk, whether that's people who can't pay mortgages, can't pay rent. And we all know that the cost of living just keeps increasing, and that's not just here in Merritt, but that's everywhere, and we can't keep up. And if we've got no jobs, we can't survive on EI, and that's for those of us who even qualify.
I just want to recap a little bit on what Shelley and Frank and everybody said. These employees need steady paying jobs. The forest industry does provide that when we have the avenues to go to work every day. And without permits and the delays from the Forest Service and First Nations, we're not able to do that. It's put some hardships on families here in the valley.
Just about everything that we do comes back on this. I got to have steady employment, pay my mortgage. My daughter just graduated. There's fees for college and stuff like that. Everything that I do comes back to this. I've got to have a steady employment. I need the income to support my family.
Well, we really need the government to come up and speak to the loggers in this area, to actually give them a very clear understanding of what's going on and why that they keep stalling us. Nobody's actually come forth and said what the reason is. We thought it was the price of lumber at one point in time, but the price of lumber is really high right now, and we're still not working. So is it the government forestry that won't issue the permits? Is it the First Nations that they have to work with to get approvals? Is it the mill that's holding back? We don't know, and nobody's coming forth to let us know what's going on, so we're just guessing right now.
So, if you're on EI, you can't pay your mortgage here in Merritt, and let alone a car payment or groceries or utilities. So it's very heartbreaking to see our community in this shape and to be in this environment, when I believe that there are solutions and short-term things that could be done in order to keep people employed. I believe that there is long-term goals, but short-term, I believe there are things that can be done. Okay, so the forest fires of 2021, I believe there would have been a lot of opportunity then, at the time, for logging companies, licensees, First Nations, everybody to gather up together so that we could have harvested some of that wood, which would have then come into the mill, and then we could have actually had some opportunity. Now, 2 years later, the majority of that timber has remained untouched. Eventually that timber will fall to the ground and it will be blow down, so ranchers won't be able to range cattle in that area. Recreational users for snowmobiling, hunting, gatherers, that type of thing, won't be able to access that area as easily because of all the blowdown that will eventually happen. The other main concern with the burnt timber is that burnt trees do not wick up water. So when we have freshet or spring runoff, all of that water, instead of being wicked up through the trees, will then come to the valley bottoms. And when it comes into the valley bottoms, that's when we're going to run into floods. And we did experience the devastating floods in November of 2021 here in Merritt, where our town was absolutely devastated. And, I think if we don't reforest and take care of the land that is out there, that inevitably we could run into flooding again, like we did experience in 2021.
You can go in and rehab and replant it. That should all have been replanted by now. As it is now, you can't even graze cattle or anything on it. Just exactly what Shelley said. It's far enough gone that you can't even put anybody in there on foot to replant it or anything. So it's just the hazards are too great. There's lots of timber. There's lots of burnt timber that has been sitting and not logged for 2 years, and it's pretty much useless now. Should have been on permit 2 years ago. Should have been logged. Never had that opportunity because BC Timber Sales didn't get it done.
Well, the burnt timber is, we did one block initially after the burnt timber, and after that they were supposed to have about 3 or 4 more, but nothing was issued. I was told by the mail that they had asked, around the Ashgrove to Savannah, there's a huge area burnt timber that was available. They were told by the ministry that that thing was allocated to BC Timber Sales, which is part of the ministry, but a separate, it works separately. And BC Timber Sales have not done anything about it. So right now it's getting too late. We have been 2 years already without timber standing. That thing is going to lose the value for saw logs, and they're going to have to put it, for pulp or for a cogent. Even in pulp, the charcoal content of that wood is too much. So they say they would probably have to go to a cogent plant, if that thing. At the same time, the wood is getting so dry now that it's dangerous, to work in there. So the only thing it can be harvested is by machinery only.
And now we can't send people in to reseed in areas. It's too dangerous because the trees will fall over. So it needs to be something doing. There's nothing for for water control or anything like. We're going to have lots of slides. We're going to have burnt wood coming down. They just left it, and they wouldn't let us go and log it.
After the big fires in 2021, the permits were the licensees submitted permits to log in those burn areas, and they were never approved. Just at the 1st of August, we've got some approvals to go into some of the more heavily damaged timber, and most of that's going to come out as pulp, or it's going to come out as fuel for the cogen plant, and that could have been saw logs back in the day if it would have been approved.
And it's hardened machinery. The charcoal is very, very abrasive. It's huge amount of maintenance, cleaning. The dust filters, fuel filters, air filters. It's a lot more maintenance. It's expensive to do, but in the past we used to have. They used to bring down the stumpage to about 25 cents as a salvage wood rate, but right now they said that they were still hanging on to their $55 to $60 a cubic meter range, and that's going to make it uneconomical for the mills to do that. But at the same time, if they were to get some permits, they could look at possibilities, but right now they don't have anything, or so we are told. Yeah.
The thing that bothers me most about this is that the wood is available, the permits have been submitted, the wood is available for logging. It's just the bureaucracy of getting the permits issued and approved. There seems to be two channels of government. It's First Nations and the provincial government. And at the end of the day, they can't seem to agree on what needs to be done to get these permits across the table so that the licensees can go to work and put the people in this valley to work.
Some contractors have been told that they will not be going back to work until 2025. So you can see 4 or 5 contractors, they will be shutting down. They cannot hang on. We cannot hang on for 2 years just waiting for something. We don't have the funds, to do that. And what happens to the employees? The employees have to look elsewhere. They have to do, but they have their own houses, mortgages, everything is here. It's very, very hard for them to do that thing. We can go for periods of time, for 2, 3, 4 months perhaps, but for you to move permanently, they have to get rid of the houses here, buy them somewhere else. As a company, we have to try to sell this. Who's going to buy the terrain here that we have had when there's no industry in town? We cannot move, possibly to Alberta, start a new operation and so on. It's not feasible, just not feasible. The thing, nobody wants it, You can take it to the auction, and what is it going to do? They're going to give you peanuts for it, you know what I mean? They'll give you maybe, 5 cents on the dollar, maybe in what it's worth, not on the new replacement, in what it's worth, perhaps, yeah. No point, we normally employed about 25, 27 people in the height of our things, now we are maybe a little over 20, but still, right now we have maintained a couple of guys working here in the shop doing maintenance, and one guy working at the mill processing part-time, and that's about all. But, the bulk of our employees are sitting at home. You know what I mean? Because I feel for these guys, they want to go back to work, and we don't see any possibilities. And we don't know what the cause is. People is there, they're passing the buck, blaming each other and so on. We get caught in between, and we have nowhere to go. Nothing we can do.
They need to get everybody on the same page, because we have First Nations forestry practices, we have the BC government forestry practices, and they're 2 different things which they need to meld together so they're on the same page, and then they got to work with the mill in order to approve the permits in the areas. And the other thing is that we have all this burnt wood that's been with the fires the last few years. No permits to go in there and remove the burnt wood.
They're talking about the worst fire season ever right now, which I don't believe is true. I think they're exaggerating there. But, there's hundreds of cubic meters of timber that are burnt, and if it sits for 2 years before it gets on permit, we're back to the same situation. That should be cleaned up immediately right after the fire. Those permits should be issued within days.
They don't understand that almost all of the government's income comes from three major sectors: agriculture, forestry, and mining. They're trying to do away with forestry. They're losing a huge amount of income, but they don't seem to see that. Until it actually hurts their pocketbooks, they don't understand that. People in large cities don't understand how much a mill like this and how much it affects everything in these small towns. This is the lifeblood of this town. And that's been the biggest problem. Everybody's going to leave. It will be a ghost town.
Well, my hopes here is actually the things to get back to normal. What the government really needs is to bring some steadiness to the forest industry, not this up and down. Like me as a truck driver, I don't need to watch the lumber prices. We used to be able to just go to work, we get our paychecks and everything was happening. But now everybody's watching the lumber prices. If it goes up, okay, we're doing good. If it goes down, we sit at home. I mean, that's not the right way to work anymore. We used to, like I said, we worked years every day. We just didn't know about lumber prices, didn't know about the government changing policy in the lumber industry all the time. We just went to work, raised our family, did that kind of thing. We're not politicians. We don't need to know the government bureaucracy that's going on in there. We need just to work.
Everybody's got the same problem. They don't, I think their biggest problem is they're not able to make payments. I've had to make skip payments on a pickup. Other people are having the same issues. The mortgages aren't getting paid. Everything that they do comes back to their job. Their houses, their property, taxes, everything comes back. It isn't happening.
There's nothing. A lot of the businesses are hurting around town. Nobody's shopping, nobody's spending money. Nobody's doing anything. You're just staying at home and hoping things are going to get better. I mean, Merritt being a town of 10,000 population, you know, that's it. I mean, they only can rely on so much. Then it's going to start closing. Mortgages are starting to go into foreclosure. Young families, they're going to lose their houses. They're going to have to take their families out of this town and go someplace else, and hopefully they can recoup their losses. It's not really fair to what's happening here in Merritt. After we went through, first we went through the fires, and then the next year we went through the floods, and now we're going through the friggin' lumber industry. I mean, holy smokes, how much is one community supposed to take? You don't see no government officials over here really interested in what's going on. You don't see anybody. We're just kind of left to ourselves.
So not only our local representative for the Ministry of Forests in our local office that does the approvals, or our forest minister that did visit our town a couple 3 months ago, and not a lot to say. Like, it's kind of disturbing that they don't really show a lot of concern about what's going on here in Merritt. And it's not just Merritt, it's throughout the whole province. All our small towns are suffering, and you know, they're forest based, and they really need to get their priorities straight. Like, where's the revenue coming from for this province if it isn't resources and tax dollars? People aren't making money. They can't pay their taxes. They can't pay their mortgages. They can't pay their property taxes. I don't know what everybody's supposed to do. I guess get on the government check, I guess. I'm at a loss as to what the process, what needs to change in the process. But something definitely needs to change.